Hey guys, and welcome to the first episode of the new series, The Road to Glory Becoming a Prism Chef. In this week's episode, we will be focusing on the Shopify module. And this series is basically a new platform for our users to be able to submit questions they want answered, and also allows our support members to give you guys tips and tricks on what works for us and how to overall improve your success with Prism. So, to start us off, we'll do a nice little Q&A segment. Basically, we're going to answer any questions that you guys submitted in the questionnaire. First question that we got, link versus keywords. Which one is better? So the true answer to this is that it actually depends on the site that you're trying to bot. So we're going to go ahead and pull up a recent release guide. So this is for the AJ1 volts. So as you can see, we have all the different Shopify sites that are suspected to drop the product, but the setup for each site is different. They're not all going to be the same. And the reason is because Shopify has different security measures, and each site can choose which security measures to implement. So, for example, a site like Social Status, they don't have proxy protection enabled, which means that they're not as strict on the proxies or IPs that are accessing the website during drop time, but they still have bot protection enabled. Then you have a site like KIF, which pretty much uses everything that is available, captchas, proxy protection, bot protection. So you definitely do want to make sure that you're setting up correctly. So going back to the whole early link versus keywords. For Shop Nice Kicks, that's a perfect example of a Shopify store that you want to use the early link for. The reason is number one, the early link is usually scraped and available prior to the drop. And number two, which is the most important thing, is that Shop Nice Kicks historically doesn't really mess with the product during release time. So they will most likely, the product will load onto this link at 10 a.m. and if as long as you're running this link, it will check out. On the other hand, you have a site like KIF. KIF is always known to really mess with bots and try to fool bots. So one of the methods they do is there might be 3 early links available, right, that your cook group might provide. Basically, what this means is that during or at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time when they release, or 11 a.m. whenever the release time is, the product will only load onto one of those links. So if you're running the wrong link, then you're not going to pick up the product and you're not going to be able to check out. So to combat this, this is what we recommend. I personally always run 2 different groups, especially when I'm running on Kith. The first group, task group, will have a direct link that I think the product is going to load onto, right? And for example, we're just going to keep the layers high. And then the second task group will have a keyword set. So this is pretty much as backup. This is basically saying that, hey, if this task group with the direct link doesn't pick up, at least I have a second task group running with keywords just in case that the early link is incorrect for some reason, right? And let's pretend that this is during a drop. So we're going to go ahead and start both of these at 7 minutes ahead of time to make sure our tasks get through queue. And let's go ahead and start. As you can see, only one of my groups picked up, and that was the one that I was using keywords with. The main reason is this direct link is actually incorrect. I just typed in a bunch of random numbers right here, and that's why I didn't pick up anything. But the one with the keywords did pick up. Um, Usually during drop time, you won't actually pick up the product until the product loads. The only reason why this one showed up was because the product's already released on Kith, and that's why it showed up. Alright, next question. How does variant monitoring work on live products? So, if you have the variant ahead of time, Prism will continue to monitor the variant until it comes in stock and then check out. Remember that the variant is tied to the size of the product on Shopify. So, as an example, we have this variant for Shoe Palace, right? And this variant is actually an item that has been loaded onto the site but is out of stock. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at what that looks like. So okay, picked up the product right away. I guess there is a little bit of a queue. This variant corresponds with size 8 of the LeBron 8 QS Lakers men. right? So right when we get out of queue, you'll notice that it's actually just going to be waiting for restock. Reason why is size 8 in this model is not currently in stock, so it's actually just going to keep checking according to our task delay. And the reason why so variants are a little different in terms of how they constantly check for the product, because it will actually use the task proxy instead of the monitor proxy list to consistently monitor the site. So just keep that in mind if you are using variants. Then, on the other hand, let's take a look at a variant that is in stock on Shoe Palace. So it went ahead, it picked up the product. Once again, I guess there is a little bit of a queue. But right after you see this, see, it's going to go ahead and now go through the checkout flow for Shopify. It's obviously going to go to payment failure because this is a fake profile and it didn't actually check out. So if the item is live but it's out of stock, it will just consistently be on, waiting for restock, and it'll continue to check the site to make sure it goes in stock. All right. Next question we got is it required to run tasks at a super high delay and then drop to load delays right before? Follow up, they asked, why can't we just run 3K delays consistently? So that's actually a very good question. And basically, the main reason why we've run tasks at a super high delay early, maybe like 5 to 7 minutes before drop time, is to make sure that every task in that task group gets through the queue. And the queue is something that Shopify implements when a lot of people are trying to access the website and try to check out a certain product. This helps them, manage the traffic flow and also make sure that they don't oversell. So, as an example, this is what I usually do. So let's say the KIF drop is at 11 a.m., right? I have my monitor delay set to some value, usually over 10,000. That usually works for me. I just like to do 15,000 to be safe. Also, my task delay should be at 15,000 as well. Alright, so we have that one set. Now we're also going to make sure this monitor is at 15,000, and then the task one for this one is at 15,000, so we're good. So what we're going to do is we're going to also make sure that this doesn't pick up anything random. Or we don't want it to pick up anything, so we're just going to type in something random here. And so let's say it's 7 minutes before drop time. I'm going to go ahead and start both of these. So what it's going to do is it's going to go put these tasks, and most of the times they'll be on queue. By starting that early, it gives enough time for the task to get through queue, and then it should be on waiting for product. Then right before 11, around 30 seconds to 15 seconds before, this is when I go ahead and drop my delays. And I definitely recommend reading the release guide because we always update the delays depending on what works best. But for me, 4500 usually works really well. I'm going to go ahead, change to the 4500, make sure to click out. It should give you a notification that it's updated. Also going to go ahead and lower the delay in the task group. And now this task group is good to go. Right at 11, it should pick up the product and check out without hitting the queue again. To go back, we forgot to answer the second part of that last question is why can't we just run at 3K delays constantly? And the answer to this is technically you could, especially if you had enough unbanned proxies that you didn't have to worry about getting your proxies banned. However, if you run at 3K delays consistently, and especially since I'm running on my local IP, if I were to run 3,000 delays consistently, I would get temporary ban from Shopify, which means that I wouldn't even be able to pick up the product and my task would just be stuck. And basically, you're just trying to avoid getting banned. So definitely do not run 3,000 delays consistently. Even if you have proxies that are unbanned, you might want to check with your proxy providers because a lot of them have very strict guidelines on what delays to run and how early to run them. So you want to make sure that you check in with your proxy provider, or else you might be breaking their terms and conditions, which means that you might just get your plan canceled without a refund. So definitely make sure that you're checking that out. All right, the next question that we had is please explain monitoring delays and the proxy list it uses. And they also just want a general explanation of monitoring versus, using the task delays and what these mean. So the simplest way to kind of understand this is that the task group is in charge of finding the product, and the actual tasks then are in charge of checking out the product. So on the left hand side, this is going to be your monitor proxy list, and then this is going to be your monitor delays. Then when you go into the actual task, you have the option to change your task delay and then your task proxy list. So basically, tasks do not do individual monitoring. For example, if you see your bot waiting on product, that means that each individual task is waiting for the task group to find the product using the task group proxies. The only exception to this is if your Shopify task, if this goes to out of stock while you're checking out, or if you're using variants, then it'll actually be using your task proxy to be monitoring for the product to come back in stock. So I definitely do recommend checking out our actual task group monitoring FAQ guide that we have on our help.prismaio.com website. It really, there's a lot of questions that it answers and a lot of common questions we see when people open tickets. It should answer a lot of those questions that you guys have. All right, the next question we had is there a way to manage all Shopify tasks in one group so that it's easier to control? Unfortunately, we do not offer that option because, as we said, each task group only has one monitor input, and all these tasks are only going to be searching using that monitor input. So each task group is specific to the site and also specific to the monitor input that you use. At this time, we don't really have any plans to combine everything, as we really think the task group is really intuitive, and I think as long as you kind of get comfortable with it, it should be very beneficial to you guys. Also, you can click and drag, organize them however you want. Should help you out. Next question we have is, how do you fix slow captchas? Captchas sometimes take 1 minute to pop up. Doesn't really happen in other bots. Am I doing something wrong? And most of the times, yes, it is something that you incorrectly set up. The only times, obviously we've had some issues with our captcha system. Felipe really focused on that, and he really revamped the whole captcha system. So if you are getting slow captchas during the drops, it could be one of two things. Number one, I definitely do recommend that you check your setup. So go to your harvesters, make sure that whatever Gmails you are using, that you're logged into, that you are, you know, trying to mimic human activity, whether using a third-party software like AYCD or anything else. Make sure that these Gmails are primed and kind of mimic human activity, so you get easier captchas. Also, if you have multiple Gmail accounts in your harvester, I would definitely do recommend having separate proxies on each one. The reason is if you're solving too many captchas on one single IP, Google might actually flag that IP, and you might start getting harder captchas, or just you might actually end up getting your Gmails temporarily suspended. So we definitely do recommend that if you are running multiple Gmail accounts, definitely try to use proxies. Second, a lot of people I do notice is confuse the checkpoint and the checkout. There are actually two different settings. The checkpoint is the captcha that initially shows up, especially during release times, where you need to solve this physical captcha. There's really no way to get a one-click captcha on this, so you have to solve this before you can actually enter the whole checkout flow. So you definitely want to have one of these open. So you want to make sure that checkpoint is up, make sure that it says checkpoint, and then you want to also have a checkout captcha as well, and you want to make sure that it says checkout. So definitely make sure you have that. If you continue to have slow captchas and you know that these captchas or that the Gmail accounts are good, they mimic human activity, and you're getting one clicks on other bots, then this might be a case where you might want to delete it, re-download the Prism application from the dashboard, and then re-add them because something might have been bugged with the actual harvester. Then the other times where you might get slow captchas is during drop times, for example, like KIF, especially on a very big release, like if they're dropping off-white Jordans or something, you know a ton of people are going to be trying to check out on KIF, and what that does is sometimes their website gets overloaded. So even though everything might be fine on your end, just the connection to the actual captcha service might be delayed on KIF's end because so many requests are going out. So that's why we do have the little refresh button on our harvesters. So let's say we have our checkpoint up, and we're not really seeing anything here, but it says captcha status on your proxies. Try to leave your task for a little bit, because they might eventually load. It just might be a little bit of a delay from the site response. But if all your tasks are like stuck on captcha, you're not seeing anything here, and it's actually blank, and you don't see any of this, it's just blank, definitely go ahead and press the refresh button so it refreshes its connection. That's something definitely to look out for. Alright, so the next question that we have is, what does unknown response mean when running fast mode on Prism? And 9 out of 10 times when you get the unknown response when running fast mode, it just means that bot protection is probably on for that website, which means that fast mode will not be able to check out. So just make sure that if fast mode isn't working, try using safe mode. Most of the times the issue is that bot protection is up and fast mode does not account for this. So just make sure that you check your task mode. Next question that we have, with Antibot and checkout protection enabled, we use safe preload, but sessions only last about 5 minutes. Do we need to stop and restart tasks every 5 minutes, or the bot automatically cycle through that? If we have 20 tasks, is it recommended to start 10 and 5 minutes later start another 10, so at least 10 tasks are always active on each checkout session? So this is kind of interesting. It really depends on, I think, everyone's setup. Because for people, who are only running 1 or 2 tasks for each task group, then absolutely, if it's release time, you still don't see the item drop, then you might want to go ahead and maybe restart one of your tasks. However, most of the times I just kind of keep my tasks running through. If, the checkout session is expired, what it will do is it will trigger another checkpoint to come up when the item loads, and then you'll just have to solve another checkpoint. So most of the times, you can go ahead and leave your tasks running, just maybe increase your delay to make sure that they don't get banned, and you don't have to consistently, start your task. If you're really worried and want to make sure that, you're always prepared for anything, maybe run another task on just regular safe mode and not safe preload, just so that if any checkout sessions are expired and for some reason it doesn't, reprompt you to solve a checkpoint, then at least that task should be operating normally and will pick up the checkpoint, and once you solve it, it should go through the checkout flow fine. And then the next question that we have is, can you explain the difference of using keywords with and without parentheses? And most of the times, our actual inputs do require that you have parentheses. Like if I don't have these parentheses, it will still work right now because it's only searching for this one keyword set. However, if I want to search for 2 different keyword sets, that is when you definitely want to make sure that you have parentheses. So I'm going to create a separate one with Jordan, comma, mochas, right? So what this keyword group essentially is looking for, what this monitor input is looking for, is it's going to look for any product that has a combination of Nike, Air Force, Ray, gun, and this last keyword group that I just put randomly earlier. And then it's also going to be searching for Jordan plus mocha. So if either Jordan plus mocha or the first keyword group show up, then this will automatically pick up that product, and then these tasks will attempt to check out. So that's basically the explanation. Right. The next question that we have is, what is the most recommended amount of tasks to run across all Shopify sites at one drop time? So let's take a look at a release guide. So for the AJ Volts, you'll notice that there is a ton of sites that are potentially dropping at 10 a.m., right? So at this point, this is kind of when you need to prioritize and to figure out which site has maybe probably more stock, which site are less people botting for, or which site am I more confident in my setup and my procedure. So for me personally, if I were to see this, I know that social status, APB store, Shop Nice Kicks, these sites. Shop Nice Kicks usually has pretty good stock, so I'll definitely set up for this. If it, you know, the drop times for these stores aren't always the same, so maybe I might create one task, at most two, for each of these stores. And then I'll definitely focus heavy on Kith and Shoe Palace since both of these stores have been releasing a decent amount of stock. So even though I have, let's say, like 4 different task groups, I'll still probably only run 1 or 2 tasks in each task group. Because really, when it comes down to Shopify, it's not like foot sites where you're trying to throw as many tasks into queue and hope that some of them get out of queue quick. Basically, you're just trying to really just focus about efficiency here. So for me, you have to think that each task that you're running on KIF, you're going to have to solve a checkpoint physically, captcha. So that means that you aren't going to get a one click, so you're going to have to physically solve this captcha. So if I was running this with 10 different tasks, that means at 10 a.m. or whenever release time is, you would have to solve 10 different captchas, which, I don't think that's humanly possible to do efficiently. And by the time that you probably solve the third captcha, the item is probably going to be out of stock. So this is why we really recommend maybe 1 or 2. I personally, if it's like a shoe that I know is going to be pretty limited and a lot of people are going for, I will pretty much only run 1 or 2 tasks on my local IP because it just seems that my local IP is or gets through queue faster and is able to pick up the product faster. All right. Next question is, what is the recommended harvester to task ratio? So for me, honestly, I run 1 task per, harvester. So if I have 1 task for Kith, I am definitely going to have a, you know, checkpoint harvester up and a checkout. So if I was maybe botting for 4 different or if I have 4 different task groups and they're all releasing at the same time, and let's say I have 1 task in each, then most of the times I will probably maybe run, let's see, 2 of each. And so I like to organize it, make sure all my checkpoints are in the same area, and then that my checkpoints or my checkout ones are underneath it. And this really helps me, to manage during the drop, especially since, some of these might be stuck in queue, some of my tasks might be stuck in queue. Anytime I see a captcha pop down here, then I know for sure that something is about to check out, and I then, if I'm attempting to solve this captcha, I'll immediately jump down here and make sure I solve these. So in a case where I'm, running 4 tasks, I think then I might run 2 checkpoints, 2 checkouts, but there's no real recommended setup in terms of this where a certain amount of tasks equals a certain amount of harvesters. We just really ask that you do trial and error. You try to figure out what works for you, because for some person it might be better that they have a checkpoint and a checkout for each task they're running. Other people don't have that many Gmails, so they might just run 2 checkpoints, 2 checkouts. So definitely just experiment and try to figure out what works best for you. All right, the next question is, what is the best way to comp multiple pairs in terms of billing info? So most sites for Shopify, they are pretty strict in terms of 1 shoe per customer. So what you want to do is you want to set up profiles that have different emails, phone numbers, and some type of address jig, as we call it. So for example, if your address is here, go ahead and we'll pull up a thing to make it easier to see. But let's say your address is 123 Jefferson Street. A jig that usually works for me is placing 4 random letters before and then putting the regular address in line 1. What this essentially does is, in their actual system, these 2 addresses will look different to them, but they'll still deliver to the same area. Obviously, this is up to your discretion. I personally like to play it safe, so each profile or each task that I'm running, I definitely make sure that they're using a different profile that has unique information. That's the safest way, because nothing's worse than when let's say I'm running this same billing profile 3 different times and I check out twice, most Shopify stores will then just end up canceling both orders because they suspect it as a bot order. So if you want to cop multiple pairs on Shopify, make sure you're using unique profiles. And that doesn't mean, it's not like foot sites where you maybe have 100 different profiles. That doesn't mean run 100 tasks. Still keep tasks minimum 1 to 3 tasks per task group, and you don't want to overload yourself during drop times. All right. And the final question that we have in this segment is, what is the best proxy to use, ISP versus local? So this is kind of, once again, it's really user specific. I personally have the most success on Shopify with my local IP. I just think that, I get through queue faster. I don't have to worry as much about my proxies or, my tasks not picking up because my proxies are banned. So it kind of creates that level of comfort for me. And also, I've been working with my, running on my local IP for so long that I kind of know what delays work and what to look for. So I personally like to use local for Shopify drops. However, there are drops where, let's say, it's a huge drop. I remember for the Off-White Air Jordan 4s. That drop, I ran one task group that was using just one task on my local IP. And then I used a second group that was using unbanned DC ISP proxies. And I made sure that these were working in a drop earlier in the week, and they were still able to pick up products. So I knew that they were working, and I then ran an extra 2 or 3 tasks over here. And so it really depends, because for some people who are running on server, if they have proxies that are hosted in the same area, so if you're using a VA server and you have VA proxies and they're unbanned, that speed will actually be quicker than most people running local IP. So in that case, you might want to do that. For other people like me, let's say your only option is local IP or residential proxies, I would definitely recommend maybe only running 1 or 2 tasks on local. The reason being is that residentials are way too slow. So by the time you're going through the checkout flow, it's just most of the time it's going to be sold out before your task does anything. Now that we've finished the question and answer segment, we're going to move on, and we're going to focus on 2 aspects of the Shopify module which were heavily requested. And the first one is quick tasking and how to effectively do it. And number 2 is how to efficiently run for restocks. So let's start with quick tasking. So before you can actually quick task from a monitor or anything like that, you need to make sure that your global site defaults are set. To access this, what you're going to do is go to the Settings tab, go to Site Options, and then this is where your global defaults are going to be. So first off, you have Profile. You're going to choose from the drop-down list of which profiles you want to use to quick task. So you can choose one, which will basically only create one task. If you choose 2 profiles, it'll create 2 tasks. You can also use a profile group if you have them saved. For this example, we're just going to go ahead and choose 2 random ones. So let's say I choose my debit and an Amex card. In terms of sizing, we definitely recommend you set this to random. The reason being is that most times when a Shopify store does restock, it's not like they restock a full size run. They'll restock maybe a couple pairs in random sizing. So make sure you run random so it picks up everything that does restock. In terms of proxy list, you can go ahead and choose any proxy list that you prefer to always use. I personally like to use my local IP, especially for Shopify restocks. So I will leave this blank right here. Shipping rate, we definitely recommend you do not put anything here for your global defaults. The reason being is that not every Shopify store uses the same shipping rate. So I would leave this blank for now. Mode, I personally prefer to use safe. The reason being is that these days we've been seeing more and more Shopify stores restock with anti-bot protection. So that's why we recommend using safe mode. You can go ahead and use fast, but you may be blocked if they have bot protection enabled. So probably the best thing to do is use safe. And then finally, you want to make sure that you click save so all your defaults are saved successfully. Once you do this, you're ready to move on. However, since we're on the screen, we're going to also talk about the site defaults. So going back to our conversation earlier where we told you guys not to use shipping rates, now let's go to undefeated. So this is going to set the default for undefeated tasks if we do quick task. So for undefeated, once I click the site, you'll notice that everything's blank. And this is where now you can choose if you want to only run specific profiles on undefeated. That means this will overwrite your global defaults. And then for sizing, let's say for example you just want to run for some reason size is 7, 7.5, 8. We're going to keep the proxy list blank, and then let's set the shipping rate to undefeated, which has already been saved in here, shipping rates tab. And then mode, we're going to leave it safe and click save. Now, whenever I quick task and it's for undefeated, it will use these settings instead of the global defaults. And then to go back to global defaults, all you got to do is click X, and you'll notice that everything is reverted to the same. Alright, so now that we showed you kind of how to set that up, we're going to show you what that looks like now. So most people, when they quick task, they're usually watching a monitor on Discord. Most cook groups provide this. We also provide one, thanks to Solius, in the Prism Discord. So you can go ahead and just watch this. And there's two things to note before you can start quick tasking. Number one is that most cook groups, their monitors have a separate dashboard that you need to set up. So as you can see right here, there's like a setup button. Go ahead and click that. And you'll notice that this is the Solius dashboard for their monitor. So one thing you want to do is make sure that you choose the bot that you want to use when you quick task. So obviously I have Prism selected. And then the second thing is you want to make sure that pop-ups are enabled for this site or whichever site that they tell you to enable. If you have a pop-up blocker and you try to quick task, it just won't do anything because it'll block it automatically. So I have both of those set already, so I should be good here. Next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're logged in to PrismAIO.com and the dashboard. The reason being is if you're not logged into the dashboard and you click quick task, it will automatically redirect you to the dashboard, and instead of starting the task for you, you'll first have to log in to the dashboard. You probably have two-factor authentication enabled, so you have to do that. And by the time you're actually logged into the dashboard and it sends the task, the item is going to be sold out. So whichever is your primary browser, we definitely recommend that you're always logged into the PrismAIO dashboard. So we have that all set up. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So right now, I just have four task groups, nothing with quick tasking enabled, nothing's running. So let's say I want to run for DLTR. This just restock, so I'm going to click the quick task button, right? Let's go ahead and click that. It's going to send something right to my bot, and as you can see, it automatically started the two tasks for me, and it used all the settings that I saved before. So I chose random sizing, and obviously it looks like 11 and 12 is what picked up. Oh, let's go ahead and cancel those because we don't want to check out. But it looks like, I guess, size 11 was out of stock, so it picked up on the size 12 that was still in stock, and it started the checkout flow automatically. As you can see, it shows random sizing, no proxies, because I didn't set proxies as my default, and everything's good to go. So if you guys are having issues where your tasks aren't auto-starting, once again, go back to your global defaults, make sure everything's saved, make sure you're logged into the dashboard, and that you have your cook group monitors dashboard settings also set up. Another way that you can quick task easily is there's this dedicated quick task button on the top right of the bot. Go ahead and click this. All you need to do is copy and paste a product URL. It'll automatically pull your global defaults. I'm going to go ahead, and you can always edit it here if you need to, and then just click start, and it should create the task group and also automatically start the task. So let's go ahead and try it. As you can see, the task is automatically started and it's running. Someone also asked, what is the easiest way to mass link change? As of right now, the best way to do it is really just clicking in, obviously deleting this, and just pasting in the new link. We did hear your suggestions. A lot of you guys are asking for easier ways to mass link change, and we brought that to the developer's attention, and hopefully in a future Shopify update you should see some new features. Now we're going to switch gears and talk about how to run for Shopify restocks efficiently and effectively. So the first thing is that variants are going to be your best friend when running for restocks. The main reason is because most Shopify stores aren't going to change up the variants. They might change up the early link or the keywords, but the variants usually stay the same. So let's use Shoe Palace as an example. This is a Shopify store that does tend to restock a lot. and is pretty consistent with using the same variants. So we're going to create a group. All right. So let's go ahead and pull up a recent release guide. So for the AJ1 volts, we have the shoe palace section right here. We provided the direct link and the variants. We are going to use the variants right now, especially since we're going to be running for restocks. So I have all the variants copy and pasted over here already, just to make it easier for myself. To enter variants, you're going to go ahead and click these three dots right here. You're going to click Enable Variants. So you can see now the monitor input has changed, and you're going to enter one variant per line. So I'm going to copy and paste this, and now we have the task group updated successfully, and we're ready to create our tasks. All right, so now let me go here. Now you can choose whatever profile you want to use, and we'll get back to the profile section because I actually want to skip ahead and talk to the variant section. So you have the option to either choose to run for one task or create one task for a specific variant, or you can create one task for each profile that you have selected and it'll choose a variant, or you have the option to create a bunch of tasks. Basically, for every variant that you have in, we have 15. It'll create 15 tasks for each profile that is selected. So right now it says 15. If I choose one more, it'll show 30. So obviously, to increase your chances of hitting a restock, you want to be running every single variant or one task per variant that's loaded onto the website. A lot of the times, most people don't have either enough proxies or don't have enough unique profiles to do this. And what I mean is like this. If I were to create 15 tasks right now and I was using a single profile, I do have all my grounds covered. I'm basically running for every size. However, what happens if I hit on two different tasks? Basically, most Shopify stores will then cancel your order because it obviously suspects it as a bot order since you checked out two pairs instantaneously, right? So to really combat this, we suggest having a unique profile for each variant that you're running for. So if I'm running 15 different variants, what I would want is for each of these tasks to have a different unique billing profile, and that really covers all grounds and makes sure that even if you do cop, you won't get canceled. Going back to this as well, and talking kind of about which delays to change, you definitely do want to change your task delays because we are using variants as we spoke earlier in the video. And I usually like to use a delay of around 8,000. I think that's usually safe, especially since I don't run too many tasks and I have around 25 solid Shopify proxies that I use, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click that and click update. So the reason why you want to change your task delays instead of your monitor delays is because with variants, it's going to use this information to constantly monitor the site. Because variants, you technically are carting the product and it's just now waiting for it to go in stock again, and it's just it's going to keep submitting payment and spamming it. So that's why this differs. However, if I were using the direct link, let's go ahead and now flip this back. I'm going to go ahead and use direct link right here. And now I'm going to create some tasks. Let's say I create just 3 restock tasks. I'm going to set this delay to 4,500. And then now I want to make sure that my monitor delays are high. The reason is because it's now going to use, when I'm running for restocks right now, it's going to use this information, this monitor proxy list, and our monitor delay to consistently check the site to see if the item is in stock. Once it carts, then it's going to use this information to continue the checkout flow. So I hope that makes sense. Definitely want to make sure, the key things is running high enough delays. If you know what time is dropping, for example, if one of your cut groups tells you that, hey, this item is going to restock in 30 minutes, then you can run high delays to make sure all your tasks are through the queue. And then when it's closer to the drop time, you're going to lower your delays just like how we do on the initial release. So that pretty much concludes on how to efficiently run for restocks. Another thing that people do is once they see either the checkpoint go up, a lot of these sites like Kith, when they're going to restock something good, or Shoe Palace,
you'll see that the checkpoint goes up. A lot of cook groups have checkpoint monitors. Um, they also have anti-bot monitors. So when you see bot protection go up, what a lot of people tend to do is then start a task. So let's say I have this group created before. I notice that Shoe Palace has anti-bot up right now. So what I'm actually going to do then is I'm going to create a random keyword set, right? Something that I know will never pick up. So something like that, right? And I'm going to go ahead and make sure that all my tasks are on safe mode or safe preload, especially since I know it's going to restock. I personally like to use safe, but you can go ahead and use safe preload if you know it's going to restock in, a short amount of time. But I technically like to use safe mode, and we're going to go ahead and start this. So as you can see, nothing's picking up right now, right? If the checkpoint is up, you'll automatically, the captcha windows will, or you're supposed to have them up, and you'll have to solve the checkpoint for each task. Now, as soon as the product becomes available and you see the link show up or whatever item that pops up, that's when you quickly paste in the correct link right here, and then your tasks are already have solved checkpoint and they'll go through the checkout flow and you just will have to solve the checkout captcha. So that's what a lot of people do when they're waiting for restocks. I know that really improves success. So if any of you guys have questions, definitely feel free to DM me about this.
Thank you guys for watching the first episode of our new series, The Road to Glory, Becoming a Prism Chef. In this episode, we went over the Shopify module, and hopefully we answered a lot of the questions that you guys had. We did notice that some of you guys did submit suggestions for our questionnaire, and we did notice some good ones, so we will make sure that we get them over to the developers and see what we can add on. Really, when it comes down to Shopify, it really takes a lot of trial and error and understanding what works for you because there's no perfect setup for every person. So we definitely recommend that you guys take a look at this video, try to really hone your Shopify skills, and always feel free to ask questions in the support channel if you have any. All right, peace and love, guys.